from my perspective, looking at the two kind of options on the table from a purely economic standpoint, forget all of the other topics that are part of evaluating a president, et cetera. From a pure economic standpoint, Donald Trump would be much better than Joe Biden, right? Now, when you look at that, what are the downsides? You have to understand the policies, right? So deregulation, weaker dollar, and kind of an understanding of crypto and AI, et cetera, with picking J.D. Vance as vice president and some of the people he surrounded himself with. If you look at, let's say, weaker dollar, right? It can be inflationary. Doesn't have to be, but it definitely can be. On top of that, if you look at things like Trump recently came out and said he wants to change the corporate tax rate from 21% down to 15%. Sounds awesome.
CEO of Professional Capital Management, Anthony Pompliano, had a recent interview with Phil Rosen, the co-founder of Opening Bell Daily, and they discussed issues, including the future outlook for interest rate cuts, what Trump trade means for investors, and its impact on Bitcoin. According to Anthony Pompliano, people are seeking something to be excited about, and Trump's growing chances of winning the presidency are creating a stir. This is why the Trump trade is motivated by speculation and excitement. He pointed out that some are reflecting on 2016, when deregulation, a declining dollar value, and zero interest rates resulted from Trump's initiatives. Pompliano claims that as of right now, the market is pricing in an 80–90% possibility of an interest rate reduction by September, that is, right before the election. Powell's remark that the Fed might wait too long if they wait for inflation to reach 2%, and Trump's claim that the Fed shouldn't lower rates before the election makes him think this dynamic is particularly intriguing. Pompliano also shared his opinion that interest rates reflect the state of the economy, and that the Trump trade is more about policy-driven deregulation. He believes that the recent attempt on Trump's life is more likely to be the cause of the spike in Bitcoin prices than Trump's growing odds. Watch clips from the interview for further insights into Anthony Pompliano's conversation with Phil Rosen. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more content. Enjoy the video.
The Trump trade stuff is hilarious to me, right? Because I think that there are two things. One, there's just the excitement. Like we're in kind of the sideways summer. It's really boring. People are looking for something to be excited about. Here comes, President Donald Trump's odds are skyrocketing that he's going to be the president. People go and say, let's look in the rearview mirror at 2016. What happened? There was deregulation. There was devaluing of the dollar. There was interest rates at zero. Like all these things that occurred. Oh, if Trump gets in office, we're going to go right back to that. And so that excitement is actually speculation, right? At the same time, he is talking about some of his policies, and there is a lot of deregulation. It does appear that some of the policies would be kind of weaker dollar, higher inflation, et cetera. And so how do you position yourself? Well, if the odds are increasing, that means that you should be also increasing the odds that you're positioned to benefit from that situation. Now, the interest rate cuts specifically, I don't think are as much part of kind of the overall Trump trade. Trump and Biden both have interfered quite often with the Federal Reserve in a soft power way. So neither one of them walks into the Federal Reserve and says, hey, Jerome Powell, you're going to do this. But they sure try to influence it via soft power, right? So Trump, his method of influence was Twitter. He would just get on Twitter and start tweeting about, weakening the dollar and all these kind of different things. Biden would be more kind of politically correct in that on multiple occasions he called Jerome Powell to his office when things weren't going so hot and basically was like kind of calling the teacher to the principal's office saying like, hey, what's going on? And so this is not a partisan thing. If you're the president of the United States, a huge part of how you are judged is based on the economy. And one of the biggest inputs into the economy is what is the cost of capital? And so naturally, you want to influence in either direction what you think should happen, although you don't have control. And so Trump now is out in the public saying, hey, they shouldn't cut interest rates before the election. That would be election interference. That would be, all these different things. On the same side, Jerome Powell had some comments where he's like, well, listen, if we wait till inflation is at 2%, we waited too long. And so there's this very interesting dynamic. And if you go and you look in the market, depending on what data point you look at, whether it's a prediction market, the bond yields, et cetera, it's like 80 to 90% likelihood that by September, we are going to have an interest rate cut. That happens to be months before an election. And so it's just a very kind of interesting aspect, but the Trump trade, I think, is more like policy driven of the deregulation, etc. The interest rates are probably more a reflection of like what's going on in the economy. I have a harder time believing that Bitcoin's price is going up because Trump's odds are going up as president. Yes, he is sympathetic to crypto and Bitcoin. He has said, hey, I'm a pro crypto candidate. I will protect this. I think he's even gone as far as to say he wants every Bitcoin to be made in America. Yeah. Great tagline, not exactly how the network works, but at least the sentiment I think is very well received by the American population. I actually think that Bitcoin's price has been going up because somebody tried to assassinate the president, right? And this idea that like that is a potentially destabilizing event, is a very chaotic, uncertain, ever-changing situation that now people say like, wait a second, there's political violence going on. And you've seen this in other countries, and that's really where I get the data point from. You've seen places where there has been some sort of conflict, there has been some sort of political violence, there's been some sort of controversy, chaos, uncertainty, etc. And in those countries, you see more buying of Bitcoin. And so if you go back and you look on Saturday night, the night that somebody shot Donald Trump, you can see that on the news of the president, the former president has been shot, the price actually drops. Immediately. I mean, it's like the news hits, the wire and gets on Twitter, the price drops. And then as soon as everyone realizes he's okay, the price just 180s and rips higher. And so to me, what that is signaling is the price dropped because there was a moment of panic and fear. And like, did the former president just get assassinated, right? Did he just get killed on live television? The second that people realized, it didn't actually work, it wasn't successful, the price goes up because people realize like we're in a new era now, right? Like we haven't had an assassination attempt on the president in terms of like actually physically hurting the president or former president in decades. And so when that occurs, people start to say, oh, this is possible, right? There's an uncertainty to this. And so that to me is the catalyst of why Bitcoin has been going up.
Anthony Pompliano discusses the Trump trade, driven by excitement and speculation. He notes interest rate cuts aren't part of the trade, and Bitcoin's surge is due to the recent assassination attempt on Trump, signaling a new era of uncertainty and increased interest in Bitcoin. Anthony Pompliano reported that from a purely economic standpoint, Donald Trump's policies would be more beneficial than Joe Biden's. He noted that Trump's deregulation and weaker dollar policies could lead to economic growth, and his understanding of crypto and AI could be beneficial. However, he also pointed out that there are downsides, such as the potential for inflation and the impact on the national debt. Regarding Bitcoin, Pompliano reported that it has consistently protected purchasing power over the last decade, making it an attractive store of value asset. He noted that its strong computer network, growing acceptance, and legal and regulatory treatment make it a popular choice. He also mentioned that the fact that hundreds of millions worldwide hold and use Bitcoin is a testament to its resilience. Pompliano also reported that even intelligent individuals like Jamie Dimon and Donald Trump have changed their minds about Bitcoin. He noted that Dimon, in particular, has gone from a skeptic to a supporter, and his influence could be significant. Pompliano emphasized that the Bitcoin community should be open to educating and convincing others rather than dismissing them. He stated that the messenger matters, and having influential individuals on board can make a big difference. Let's go back to the interview and watch more clips to gain insights from Anthony Pompliano.
From my perspective, looking at the two kind of options on the table, from a purely economic standpoint, forget all of the other topics that are part of evaluating a president, et cetera. From a pure economic standpoint, Donald Trump would be much better than Joe Biden, right? Now, when you look at that, what are the downsides? You have to understand the policies, right? So deregulation, weaker dollar, and kind of an understanding of crypto and AI, et cetera, with picking J.D. Vance as vice president and some of the people he surrounded himself with. If you look at, let's say, weaker dollar, right? It can be inflationary. Doesn't have to be, but it definitely can be. On top of that, if you look at things like Trump recently came out and said he wants to change the corporate tax rate from 21% down to 15%. Sounds awesome. There's something called the Laffer curve, right? And Art Laffer came up with this idea that if you actually lower the corporate tax rate, that will encourage job growth, R&D, innovation, growth, et cetera, which means that even though each corporation is paying a lower percent, the overall aggregate amount of taxes collected will go up. But the beauty of Bitcoin is that Bitcoin seems to have the facts on its side, right? Kind of the truth is on its side. And what I mean by that is there's hundreds of millions of people around the world that hold it and use it. Bitcoin is the strongest computer network ever created in the world. You also now have governments around the world becoming much more sympathetic and positive towards the legal and regulatory treatment. And then also, Bitcoin is the only asset I'm aware of that has consistently protected your purchasing power over the last decade with this accelerated inflation. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you say to yourself, okay, of the store of value assets, this is probably one of the most popular, definitely probably one of the most resilient. It's now got the same legal treatment and regulatory treatment as other commodities and store values. And it has done a better job of protecting my purchasing power than anything else. Well, if you're in the finance game, like you got to pay attention, right? So like the facts have changed now and it's become much more obvious. And so the last thing I'll say is Jamie Dimon's not dumb, right? Like this guy's incredibly intelligent. And so sure, would he probably in hindsight go back 10 years and be like, oh, I wish that I would have bought Bitcoin and, understood this and got the bank and whatever. Sure. But it's not actually where you start. It's all about when you are presented with new facts, do you change your mind? Like that is the sign of intelligence. And so Jamie Dimon's path is no different than Trump's. Go back. Trump was railing on Bitcoin too. Everyone has amnesia. We forgot about that because now he's coming to speak at the Bitcoin conference, right? Like, shows up at the Bitcoin conference. He's going to say, Orange coin is good. I'm the Bitcoin president. And people will literally forget all the other stuff he said. Jamie Dimon comes out tomorrow and says, Orange coin is good. Number go up. I'm going to be the Bitcoin banker. Like, let's roll. Literally, you ain't going to hear anybody complaining about Jamie Dimon anymore, right? And why do I know that? Because that's what they did with Larry Fink. Larry Fink is the CMO of Bitcoin. He has been accepted with wide open arms. People are saying, Larry, thank you. You are amazing. Keep going on TV saying it's a flight to quality, all these things. Larry Fink was not a Bitcoiner 5 years ago, right? He changed his mind. And so I do think that maybe a word of caution to the Bitcoin community, when people disagree with the Bitcoin story, the Bitcoin facts, it's okay to push back, right? Like part of the debate is try to educate them and convince them. But don't kick people while they're down, because they may actually change their mind. And if they change their mind, we have a history now of accepting these people kind of on our team. And so when they do that, don't dunk on them and say, I bought before you. Instead say, hey, thank you so much. Like, who else can you now help us go do it? Because one of the big stories, I think, in Bitcoin is the messenger matters now more than the message. Larry Fink is more important than anything any Bitcoiner is going to say. Jamie Dimon will be even more important. And if the president of the United States is running around doing press conferences talking about Bitcoin is good, the world will change in a crazy, crazy way.
With a recent spike in capital inflows, investor interest in Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs, is still growing. Investors are still confident in Bitcoin ETFs as an investment vehicle, despite the recent drop in the price of the cryptocurrency. With a net inflow of $102.67 million in a single day, the net assets of the BlackRock IBIT ETF now stand at $20.67 billion. Considering the present market swings, this is an impressive accomplishment. Some Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs, had inflows, such as the VanEck ETF and the Fidelity FBTC Fund. Others, like the Grayscale GBTC ETF, witnessed outflows. A net inflow of $2.78 million was recorded every day by the Fidelity FBTC Fund, increasing its total net assets to $9.82 billion. In contrast, capital flows of $1.8 million were drawn to the VanEck ETF. Inflows into exchange-traded funds, ETFs, have topped $1 billion in the last 10 days, indicating a return of confidence among investors and asset managers. Many analysts think that the price of Bitcoin is currently a good time to buy, and some even think it might go as high as $100,000. Bitcoin ETFs are changing quickly. Some people see them as bubbles, while others believe they will see a historic increase in value. Investors' steadfast interest may herald a new age for digital assets. Whether this excitement can turn the current crisis into a long-lasting revolution in cryptocurrency investing is yet to be seen, though. Investors and professionals are closely monitoring the happening of the Bitcoin ETF space as the market continues to swing. As we conclude, what are your thoughts on this interview? Are you pro-Trump or pro-Biden, and why? Please drop your thoughts in the comments below, share this video, and hit your thumbs on the like button. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.